The long layoff for Indiana only delayed the inevitable, a Hoosiers victory, as the Cream and Crimson beat the Crimson Tide 38-3. In his second quarter, Heisman Trophy winner Fernando Mendoza tossed a 21-yard touchdown to his roommate Charlie Becker to give Indiana a 10-0 lead, and they were just getting started as he throws 3 touchdowns, 2 incompletions. He had more touchdowns than he had incompletions. A couple of rushing touchdowns, one from Kalon Black and the other from Roman Hemby. And this was quick work of Alabama. Alabama starting quarterback Ty Simpson fumbled in the second quarter that led to an Indiana touchdown. Simpson ended up getting benched in the second half because of what the team said was an injury. It's Indiana's first bowl win since the 1991 Copper Bowl. Back here on CBS Sports HQ, presented by FanDuel. Back here with Emory Hunt, Beanie Wells, and Adam Breneman. Okay, I mean, what did our guy Richard Johnson say a couple weeks ago? He said they're going to win by double digits. They won by 35, Emory. Your reaction is what to what you saw from Indiana, what they did to Alabama?
I never thought I'd see the day where Indiana has better backs collectively than Alabama. You talk about Roman Hemby and Kalon Black. Both of these guys almost touched 100 yards. Both were over 4.5 yards a carry. Hemby averaged 6 yards a carry. And the fact that they ran the football down Alabama's throat was crazy to see just from a who's Indiana, who's Alabama perspective, because I thought the point of attack was fairly equal, and they came in and dominated. And also, we all talked about all throughout this lead up was that Indiana doesn't beat themselves. One penalty they had in this ball game, ran 60 plays, and Alabama's passing game was efficient. The difference was the fact that Indiana did not miss tackles. They rallied up, made stops right where they caught the football, and got these guys off the field.
Man, this was an impressive performance by Indiana. And we keep saying it. You know, they're one of the most disciplined teams in the country, but they also play complementary football. They don't rely just on their quarterback play. I remember listening to an interview earlier in the year or earlier in the week and hearing Fernando Mendoza talk about, you know who I am? I'm a point guard of this football team. I distribute the ball around, and that's exactly how they play entirely. They play complementary football on both sides. They get after the pass rusher, and collectively, we watched this offensive line dominate the defensive front for Alabama. I mean, there were so many times where I'm saying, whoa, there's nobody open. But he still had so much time to figure out where he wanted to go with the football. And there was a lot of times where Fernando Mendoza was using his legs to extend drives and get first downs. Impressive performance in my book.
Yeah, I'm so impressed by Fernando Mendoza. He showed me why he won the Heisman Trophy. And his numbers might not be electric from a yard standpoint, but 14 of 16 passing, more touchdowns than incompletions. And how about the receivers he has on this roster? There's so much skill on this Indiana team. How about Cooper and Surratt and Charlie Becker at wide receiver that can make plays all over the field, make plays in the end zone, and make plays on third down and long. That was the impressive part. And then you think about Indiana's defense. They had Alabama in this game. Their average third down and go was 3rd and 10. So Alabama was constantly behind the sticks because the Indiana defense was so good on 1st and 2nd down.
When you look at Fernando Mendoza, 14 of 16, 3 touchdowns. More touchdowns than incompletions, as Adam noted. This is going to be perhaps a first overall pick or a top 5 pick. Emory, when you see what he's able to do out on the field as a leader and distributing the football, what stands out to you?
That he's doing his 111. You know, he's not trying to do too much or be the hero. He's say, okay, if you're open, I'm getting you the football. There's no favorite receiver, favorite target. It's the open guy is the favorite target. And I like the fact that he's also playing above the X's and O's when he can't find anyone open. He's going to go take off and get the yards he could. And we saw Alabama underestimated his athleticism all throughout the game. And he's gotten hit in this ball game. He got the first drive, he got sacked twice out of 3 plays, and then we saw him bounce back and do an efficient job throughout the course of the game. I think people underestimate how good efficiency is and how efficiency can win you ball games.
Yeah, and I feel like we've been saying this every game Indiana wins, but let's not count out. I mean, what Kirk Cignetti has done at Indiana now in the quarterfinals to blow out the perennial powerhouse Alabama at a place like Indiana is borderline ridiculous what he's actually been able to do. It's been the greatest comeback that I can remember in college football. And now 25 wins at Indiana, signed the new contract, just a phenomenal job. And really, I think he's changed. Kirk Cignetti's changed how coaches should view taking over a school. There's no longer you get 4 years to turn it around. Kirk Cignetti's shown you can go to a place like Indiana and win right now, immediately, in your first couple years.
The scary thing with this football game is you have to start having major concerns if you're Alabama, the Alabama Crimson Tide. What are you going to do to be able to manufacture manufacture offense. Look, you're a top 10, a perennial a powerhouse in college football, but you can't figure out ways to get first downs. 3 first downs in this game, that's not supposed to happen. And then you're put too much on the quarterback and Ty Simpson to where you're kind of pigeonholing your offense. For so many years, Alabama, like you talked about, had 3 or 4 or 5 running backs all on the roster. They could consistently run the football. This is not Alabama football. For them to be able to be a team that have to sit back there and rely on an arm of a quarterback and they can't find anybody to create some rushing yards, this is an embarrassment performance. They do not want to go back to being an Alabama pre-2007. I can tell you that much, and that's the direction that they're trending in.
They had 23 rushing yards, total 193. They were held under 200 yards in this game.
That's just insane to think about. You talked about the backfields that they had, like 5 backs that will end up being first-round picks or second-round picks. But to Adam's point, what we saw Kirk Cignetti, or what we're seeing Kirk Cignetti do at Indiana is very much like what Bill Snyder did at Kansas State. Perennial doormat, got those guys to be a perennial power. And there's also what Gary Barnett did at Northwestern, perennial laughingstock, and turned them into a Rose Bowl champion or got to the Rose Bowl in '95. So there is something that we're seeing. There's something that we're seeing from Cignetti, and we saw it at IUP, we saw it at Elon, we saw it at James Madison, and we're seeing it right now at Indiana.
You know, I always come back to when you're a head coach, your job's to get your quarterback to play well. That is your most important thing you have to do as the leader of your organization. And Ty Simpson just hasn't played well the last few weeks, the second half of the season. Even on the fumble Ty Simpson had when he was running the football.
Yep.
I mean, you got to teach your quarterback. You got to get down. You can't put the ball at risk. He's running straight up and down. We were talking about it. There's things like that Kalen DeBoer has to clean up in this Alabama program, or guys, it's going to get very hot in Tuscaloosa very fast.
That was the only turnover of the game, and it led to 7 points, and it was the first touchdown of the game for Indiana, and then they just steamrolled rest of way. And you talk about who matches Kurt Cignetti. Well, Kalen DeBoer, he matches Kalen DeBoer. You saw the full screen TV jargon, second FBS coach to win 25 games in his first 2 seasons in FBS history. Kalen DeBoer did it at Washington, and now it is Kalen DeBoer heading back to Tuscaloosa. Kurt Cignetti's going to head back to Bloomington and then get ready for the Peach Bowl. Look, when you look at Alabama and this sort of downfall for them, because they're going to sit here, the folks in Tuscaloosa, they're going to think the sky is falling.
No question
right?
about it.
I mean, but again, this is the second season, right, for Kalen DeBoer. You had this unrealistic expectation when Nick Saban leaves. Like, I remind guys like Damian Harris and A.J. McCarron. Like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, guys, what you went through wasn't normal.
Right.
Like, you had – that was historic. So, like, you can't expect that to carry on year after year after year. You have to realize there's going to be some lean times. And I know there was some lean times back in the day,
right,
but you can't expect just national championship after national championship.
Easier said than done. I mean, that standard has already been set. So the fan base there in Alabama, they want to go back to the national championship. They want to be in the conversation.
I don't blame them.
They don't want to be embarrassed like they were embarrassed today. So for that to be able to happen, they're going to have to take a long look in the mirror. And when I say they, I mean the coaching staff and the players that they're recruiting from here on out. Are we going to go out and get guys through the portal that are veteran guys that we maybe don't have to develop as much? We can pull from other universities, and we know right now that they're ready to go. Look, Alabama has the money. We're not talking about them being one of those programs that's not able to raise capital to go out and get these top-tier players. One, people are going to want to go where there's rich tradition, and then right now where they're going to get paid. That should be a place like Alabama. So for whatever they got to do, they have to get it done. We're watching Texas Tech right now come from a program that was essentially doormat to right now being in the college football playoff. Yes, they lost today, but they made leaps and strides. Now, I'm not saying Alabama has the same money as Texas Tech, but they got some dollars, and they better use those dollars to go get some quality players, or else Kalen DeBoer won't be there much longer.
I really think that we got to get out of this mindset in college football where every loss is a referendum on the coach in the sport. I mean,
agree.
Alabama in the first round of the playoff went on the road and beat Oklahoma, had a pretty darn good season.
Down 17.
Lost in the SEC championship game. There's been a lot of wins. Kalen DeBoer is a winner. There are things that have to get cleaned up. Let's be very clear about that. There are mistakes, there's penalties, there's a lack of discipline that, quite frankly, did not happen under Nick Saban. That's happening under Kalen DeBoer. That needs to be fixed. But if you're Alabama, you can't even think about firing Kalen DeBoer right now. If you're a fan, calm down a little bit. Everything's okay. I know you're calling for his head over here. But listen, you can't risk causing more instability in your program right now. It's about rallying behind Kalen DeBoer.
I think what leads to fans to get crazy about Kalen DeBoer is that they just watched him do what he did at Washington. Yeah. It was like, man, we just saw this team be great with a first-round pick at quarterback, with all these talented wide receivers that they had, at Washington under Kalen DeBoer. It's almost like you go to New Orleans and the first meal you taste, you're like, I thought this was supposed to be culinary capital of the world. Like, you got to give it time maybe you went to the wrong spot, right? So I feel like Kalen DeBoer just needs a little bit more time. But because we saw him in the postseason with Washington and what he had there and how he turned that around after taking over for another legend, it became a problem, and that's why he's having
Let it marinate.
Let it marinate.
Let it marinate a little bit.
We just talked about Kirk Cignetti. How quickly he did it at Indiana. We're talking about giving him time.
All he does is win. Google him. All he does is win. All he does is win. In Indiana, all they do is win against ranked opponents. This is their 4th win against a ranked team this season, most in school history. Look, everything that Indiana has accomplished or will accomplish will be either the first time in program history, the first time since way, way back. Everything is incredible for this team. Their first bowl win since 1991, 14 wins in a season for the first time in school history. Indiana on to the Peach Bowl to play Oregon.